Good afternoon, Joan Williams.
Good afternoon, Mr. Cliff Hughes. And how are you, sir?
I am good.
Tennis Jamaica is learning from the politicians.
But they're latecomers to the game. Yes? The politicians have retired it.
Yeah.
And they're picking it up now. Can you imagine?
Yeah. I was amazed when I read about it last week, too.
Looking back.
Yes, sir. I'm looking back.
You wrote this. What is it? I'm reading it.
Well, if you have read it and you don't know what it is,
Let me tell you why. Because sometimes I feel it's something of an autobiography. Sometimes it is a reflection of the politics of the period and you as an activist in that era. So sometimes, based on where I am,
all of that.
I'm saying, what
it is a mini autobiography. You see, people keep saying, why don't you write about your life? Mm-hmm. But my life is not interesting enough to write about.
Really?
No, so I'm just writing about specific
Really? After
events.
you were lifted out of that meeting in Garveymead by
Magnus Williams.
Magnus Williams.
He lives abroad. I'm always talking to him about it.
Tell us that story.
Well, at the time, JIS, I think it was called, I can't remember.
API.
It was called API at the time.
Agency for Public Information.
They used to organize various fora all over the island.
Mm.
But they used to pack it up with WPJ people, PNP people, and socialists. So the JLP stopped going. Mm-hmm. And they were invited to on the economy. And they said, I'm not going. And we are young NPM people. And we said, nah, man, we have to go.
And by the way, listeners, because a lot of people don't know these abbreviations, what they stand for. NPM was the Nationalist Patriotic Movement, okay?
Yeah, which
a JLP affiliate.
It was, and Pernell Charles was the one who created it.
Okay.
We were just the young activists.
Mm-hmm.
So we said, nah, man, we go into this thing. We can't afraid of PNP and socialists and everybody. So, having been in the PNP and know how they operate, I took $300, which I'll never forget, out of my pocket.
And that's 300 valuable dollars.
That
was a whole heap of money then.
Yeah, man, 1979.
Mm-hmm.
And I chartered 2 minibuses to go to Newlands, which just featured recently. I was a councillor caretaker at the time in that area, so and it's a strong JLP area. So I told people where I was going, and I said, what I want you to do, I want the loudest mouth people to come with me. Every time I speak, you are to cheer me. And every time the PNP and WPG and API people speak, you must boo them.
That's how it operated.
So man, Miss William, man, where are we with you? Pack up my bus, them and go over. As we arrived, I had a bunch of pamphlets. So I gave them the pamphlets and said, hand out to all the people. Of course, because Michael Manley and his Manley fault and that type of pamphlets. Propaganda pamphlets. And I go inside. Of course, my people come inside. And then I hear a noise outside. When I look, the 2 buses that I chartered taking off. Everybody run left me. Now, Zeke's had a brother called Early Bird.
Oh, yes.
Who was the king of Matthews Lane. Mm-hmm. He rode a big bike.
Enforcer.
And apparently when Early Bird found out what the pamphlets were all about, he took his lighter and light the whole pilot, and the word went around his Early Bird, and everybody run away left me.
Let us pick it up after the break. All right, we're looking back at that period when Jamaica was on the brink. We were experiencing an undeclared civil war, yes, in the politics. And we're looking back because Joan Williams has written about the period, and that's the title of the book, Looking Back. So you're telling me about that incident in Newlands.
Yes,
when
sir.
your supporters, who you had the marshals.
Bring as my cheering crowd run will leave me. Can you imagine?
Among the comrades.
Me one left on the stage with the PNP, JLP pack up the place. As I open my mouth, them boo me. I don't think I got a complete sentence out.
Yes.
But I did not know that this fellow named Magnus Williams, who was a councillor caretaker in the area where we had our farm.
No relation to your
No relation.
ex-husband.
No. Magnus was a councillor caretaker in the Duncan's division of Spanish Town. I didn't know he was there because he came all by himself. I see Magnus coming through the crowd, and the next thing the man lift me up on his shoulder and take me out to, of course, it's pure booze.
Yes.
But him saved me.
Yes.
I couldn't get a word in. Every time I opened my mouth, I hear boo.
So you were in physical danger.
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think they were going to do anything to me. Them just a boo me. Intimidation.
Yes.
Harassment.
Yes.
And that is exactly what I had planned to do. Harass their speakers. But my people rather leave me.
You relate in the book, Joan, that you were in Canada. Michael Manley had come to Canada.
Yeah.
And the speech he gave inspired you
Of course. At
to
Jamaica.
leave Canada, to come back home and to join the PNP.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
It was the Jamaica-Canada Association, and we were young people, who were members. And when Michael came to Canada and told us about the terrible conditions in Jamaica and the wicked victimization and the oppression, it would have break anybody's heart. And 4 of us decided we were coming home. Only 2 remained. After a year, the other 2 went back. But you know, when Michael described, for instance, the zinc fence and the ghetto, I thought it was a country girl. And when I left Jamaica, I'd never seen a ghetto. I'd never seen a zinc fence. So I had no idea about the conditions he was speaking. So there, when he said, come back and build your country, me had to come. I never had no choice. You know Michael already.
Yeah. so convincing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So you came back and you joined the PNP.
PNPYO.
Yes. And what turned you off of the PNP?
I discovered a lot of what they were saying. They didn't believe it. I mean, I remember one quarrel I had with D.K. Duncan, because while they were cussing the 21 families, the contract to buy cars for the police went to one of the 21 families. You know, just a lot of the things we couldn't get that Michael Manley would say, don't eat foreign stuff. And I go to this party that a minister have, and it's pure champagne and caviar and everything rolling. And I realized they were not really being, they weren't genuine. A lot of grudgefulness was in what they were saying. They wanted to live like the big man. And they thought the way to get there was to take him off. And, you know, it kind of turned me off. And then I was in farming, and when people start come to me about capture the things, me I work hard for plant. You know who's the red?
Farm in Spanish,
Yeah, you know who's the red? Yeah, man, everybody want to come capture your things.
Yeah.
No.
I found, I'm reading the book, I'm not finished yet. But throughout the book, you catalogue not only the ills of the PNP, but also the JLP. And you, from time to time, analyze the leadership of Manley versus that of Siag and the other political leaders. And you were very caustic in your criticism of Manley. You called him a hypocrite, a dangerous man.
Yeah, man.
But
He never meant anything he said in my book. In my book. Nothing Michael Manley said he meant.
Yeah. But then you said later that he's the best prime minister.
No, I never said prime minister. I said leader.
Best leader.
Difference. And leader is a person who can motivate you. Whereas Siaga is one of the worst leaders I've ever seen. He demotivates his followers.
But the best prime minister.
The best prime minister. Big difference.
Big difference, yes. And why did you say Manley was the best leader, but Siaga the best prime minister?
Because Manley could motivate the devil to run where left hell. But Siaga, he couldn't motivate his followers, but he was a worker. And he had ideas. He wasn't a good leader because he didn't believe in delegation. You know, all this one-done business, and he just wasn't a good leader.
And you turned off of him?
Definitely, by about 83, I was ready to. It is only because of the threat of Grenada why I started to look back on the JLP. Because by then I was totally turned off. Having been to JLP meetings, you see, Michael was, as I said, a great leader. So when you went to a PNP leader, they were inclusive. Young people could put forward their ideas. You could discuss anything. When you went to JLP meetings, Siaga would come and say, what has to be done, and leave. That's it. Big difference. And maybe if you had never been in the PNP, you would not have felt the difference the way I did. But as you know, I like to put forward my views, so I couldn't survive in an organization where I couldn't put forward a view.
Yeah. So you had become apolitical, had you?
Yeah, man. By about after the state of emergency, I didn't see myself ever joining the JLP. But I certainly couldn't support the PNP. And it was Kingsley Sangster who was running in Edgewater, where I lived at the time, who convinced... No, it was Harry Bent, sorry. Harry Bent was the one before Kingsley Sangster, who, said, boy, come, I could get rid of the comments them. So I started to do things, but my heart wasn't in it until about 1977, when things really started to get the interest,
Mm-hmm.
Because the 76 election, you notice only like 100, and despite all the political violence and the state of emergency, the real war never really started till about 1977.
Yeah.
And
in the run up to 80.
Fernell would tell you I was on the radio every night quarreling about the state of emergency, because I couldn't see you just locking up people because they belong to another party.
Yeah.
That's not what I knew as politics,
Mm-hmm. But reading the book, I learned a lot about Joan Williams, because you're clearly someone with a sense of nationalism and public, a sense of, you have a responsibility to your country. But
I don't know if that's it, Cliff. I had traveled a lot, and when I came to Jamaica, I saw a prize that I didn't appreciate before I left.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll just make somebody come run me out of it again.
Mm-hmm. And that motivated you?
Yeah, it was a selfish motive. I wasn't about to give up my country to thugs, and thugs who come in to tell me they want to cap everything off and all them things.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Why did you leave to go to Canada in the first place?
Well, when you're young, you want to explore
Mm-hmm.
and to further your education. I left when I was 21.
Mm-hmm.
I had been to Canada when I was 14, and the place looked nice and thing. I went to New York. We spent about 6 months there, never liked it, and moved over to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
But then came the winter.
Yeah.
And I wasn't about to live through the winter. So when Michael said come back, I was ever so happy to come home.
Mm-hmm. For quite a journey in the book, you spoke about
Mm-hmm.
when you were on your way back home.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't go the convent. Listener, she's an unconventional woman. She didn't take a plane and come back to Jamaica as she could. Mm-hmm. She decided, I don't know who that collective we was. You're going to tell me who the we was. But she took rented a vehicle.
No, we didn't rent it. We had a little sports
Bug.
MG convertible. Don't joke. As this summer coming Canada, we buy a convertible car because we see the sun for the first time.
And you used that vehicle. And tell the listeners what you did with it.
We drove it from Toronto to Panama over about a 3-month period. Stopping, we had a tent, we had a stove. Every way we like, we stay there. And the way we don't like, we move on. And when we went to Las Vegas, we got broke, so I had to go to California for a while and work some money to continue. I think it's the best trip I've ever taken in my life.
Which tells me a little bit about your personality and your character. There's a sense of adventure about you.
Oh, God, yes, too much.
Yeah.
And although I've reached the age when I should be settling down, it's still bothering me.
Yeah. When you went to those islands off the coast of Colombia and then realized that people had tuberculosis and nearly died from, fear.
San Blas Island.
Uh-huh. And you just pick up yourself and go on this boat for a day on this little...
It was about 2 days to go there, yes. I don't know. The world was just there to explore.
So who were the other...
That was my ex-husband. I got married when I was 21.
That's Michael Williams?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you've been from then?
Yeah, well, yes. We got married when I was 21. Long hauling.
Yeah. Okay. But then, and I'm going to push you. Yeah, because you said, I spoke about my misplaced loyalty above in reference to giving up my seat to protest the treatment of my ex-husband by the JLP leader. That misplaced loyalty became evident when he surreptitiously moved right in to take over that same parish council seat I'd given up for him shortly after.
Mm-hmm.
You felt betrayed?
Of course. Wouldn't you?
How did that happen?
Michael had been the caretaker of that constituency, Western St. Andrew. What was it? Where... I think
Western St. Andrew.
Duane Park area.
Yes. Anthony Hilton has it.
When the election was announced, he had been there like 3-4 years working out of his own pocket, spending his own money. And as the election was announced, Seaga moved him and put in a man by the name Owen Stevenson.
Former high command officer.
So of course me vexed because a whole heap of we picked the money did spend in that constituency.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Duane Park, got some supporters, changed some placards, went to JLP headquarters, demonstrated about it. but the situation remained. So in because me vex, me give up the seat. I was councillor caretaker for Newlands.
Yeah.
And after the election, I think I had left by then. I noticed that Michael was in that seat. I think we had parted by then.
Oh, you had separated.
And the next thing I heard, he was in the seat. I'd given up in support of him. To me, that was the most treacherous thing that could ever happen. In my book.
Yeah. We're looking back to the 70s and the 80s with the author. And, of course, she does Joan Williams online here. Right here. Stay with us. After the break, you're going to hear about that gas price demonstration of 1979. The legend and the myth surrounding it. We're looking back to the politics of the 70s and the 80s with Joan Williams. It's the title of her book, and I tell you, I recommend it. It's a good read, especially for those who lived through that period. She contextualizes certain incidents, her own perspectives from an activist experience. Yeah, she was involved, and I think, Joan, too few of us write,
Yeah.
We need to do more writing as a country. Yeah.
Apart from Purnell and Michael Manley, nobody really wrote anything from the politics. But
Seaga has written.
Seaga kind of wrote a thesis, but not as part of as part of the system itself.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we need to document more. And one of the it's a good read for me. Yeah, it's a good read. One of the things I was glued to was the gas price demonstrations of 1979. Because, listeners, it is my view that the PNP and Michael Manley had lost the elections on those days in January of 1979. After those demonstrations, when the country, according to Seaga at the time, was locked down tighter than a sardine can, yeah, Seaga was effectively running the country. Yeah? And legend has it, the myth is, until you exploded it in the book for me, because I thought your ex-husband, Michael Williams, the likes of Purnell Charles, had organized the shutdown of the country to block roads. That was when Jamaica was crippled for about 4 or 5 days?
3 days.
3 days.
Nothing like that, Mr. Cliff Hughes. In fact,
tell us.
I had a little bike. I was living in Spanish Town, and I used to ride a little Suzuki 50 bike. So on the Saturday, we had a meeting at some place up Shortwood Road, Douglas Vaz's constituency. This is NPM now. We are the activists, youth, young people. So we say we want to have a demonstration about the gas price. There are about 300 people there. And they say, yeah man, we come. So we spent the whole Saturday painting placards. Monday morning I leave my house in Spanish Town for my bike and ride to town to be at the park, what is now Mandela Park, at 7 o'clock in the morning to meet these 300 people with a whole pile of placards which we had hidden in the park.
By the way, 36 years later, you're still riding.
I ride bicycle now, though. I'm afraid of the engine.
I see you riding a bicycle.
Anyway, when we reached the park, we see about 6 or 7 people. So wait a little longer. And these were NPM people. Eventually, it looked like forever, but it could have been an hour. About 11 people turned up eventually. And we said, boy, well, we have a 300 placard, but we have to demonstrate. So people took up their placards and were walking on the sidewalk in a very orderly way with our placards. I was pushing my bike because I was not about to leave my bike anywhere. And I was going up to motorists and begging them to gas. I said, boy, the price of gas gone up and we can't afford to buy gas.
Propagandizing.
But we weren't getting any traction. The people blow and wave and thing, but nobody not coming out. And then we saw a JOS bus coming down Hope Road. Just as it reached the clock, just above the clock, a whole pile of people came out of the bus. And the next thing I know, somebody juked the 4 bus tires with the ice pick. So, of course, the bus sat in the middle of the road. So somebody who came off that bus, I don't know who it was, one of the young men, just went round and juked the four tire. So the bus was immobilized, and hence started the roadblock. Then this very smart judge by the name of Jeffrey Ramsey, I remember he drove a Rover. He came down with his car, and when he saw people blocking the roads and he couldn't get through, he held up his judge's gown and says, "Oh no, I'm a judge, I have to go to Spanish Town to get out of the way." And somebody looked at him and said, "You're not trying nobody today," and juke for him 4 tire too.
Oh, no.
And that was when halfway through was blocked up. I never blocked a road, Cliff. In fact, at about 11 o'clock when the whole place started block up, I decided that my children were Spanish Town with the helper. So I decided I have to ride home to check that everything was okay, because I hear reports coming all up from all over.
Yeah, because it was spreading over the country.
Yes, that all sorts of things were happening. So I jump on my bike now to ride back to Spanish Town. When I reach Mullines Road and Reddy's Road
intersection, yeah.
The road block and the people don't want to let me through. And I say, hold on, it's me back the road. Eventually they let me through. And when I reached Spanish Town, just beyond my farm now, I find another roadblock. And they wouldn't let me through. And then I said, "Oh, it's Miss Wheelman," and they let me through. So they, from about 10 o'clock apparently, they started to charge money to let people through. It was not a roadblock of dissidents. It was an opportunity to make money, as far as most people are concerned.
So it was all spontaneous then after that?
Well, it seemed to, people just seemed to have come up with the idea that they could make some money by blocking the road and charging people to go through.
Well, I lived through it, and I recall the whole country was locked down.
And by day 2, the word went around, "Man, you can make money, you know, you can block the road and people will pay you to get through." But by then people were staying home, and by day 3, people were staying home. But it became a money-making concern. It was not no dissidents.
So when the Labour Party claimed credit for it then, was not really so?
They never pay us bad mind when we apart from Douglas Vaz, when we said we wanted to demonstrate about the price of gas.
Oh.
So, and Douglas Vaz did convene a meeting at his office where people promised to support us but never turned up.
Because after that, it was a huge political...
Oh, Lord, yes.
A huge political victory for Seaga and the JLP.
Yeah, man. I think quite a few people who, not just money-making people, came out because they, the spirit caught them.
Yeah.
But they weren't initially interested in coming out to demonstrate against the price of gas.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, Cliff, I've never personally blocked the road, but I did try. On day 2, as I said, by then offices told people not to bother come out because of the inconvenience.
Yes.
But we were manning a roadblock at Constant Spring Road, but nobody was coming through. And then we saw a white man driving a car coming down, so of course we're not letting him through. And the man held up a pair of crutches and says, "I'm on the way to the hospital." So we decided to let him through, and when I looked, those days the disc had on the name of the owner of the car. When I look on the disc, it said USSR Embassy. So me call him and me say, "Russian, come we beat him."
You hear that?
Well, hold on. The Russians were in Jamaica fighting against us trying to take away our freedom.
Yes.
And to me, it was justified too. He was clearly from the embassy, it said USSR Embassy. And when the man see us coming, the man draw a reverse of Constant Spring Road, you see. So I never ever got the opportunity to block a road.
So let me ask you, the incident when you were detained at Crossroads police station, yes, for picking up some spent shells. Yeah. That was the only time you were actually detained?
For politics, I've been detained in Mandeville for traffic, but for politics, yes.
And you said the hunger was killing you?
Yeah, man, I tell you, the man, a soldier push him gun in my back. And I'm thinking, suppose this man drop and shoot me in my back. And I remember, the gun court had just come in. And you're talking about indefinite detention. And I have a handful of spent shells. And man, I said, boy, you're locked up for life. So, of course, I was scared out of my wits. And they had me sitting down in Crossroad, and they never charged me with anything, but they wouldn't feed me either.
Then a man came and gave you some Guinness, or was it stout?
So I think it was Guinness. It tastes good. I don't drink stout because bitter, but whatever it was, it tastes nice. And he gave me a cigarette. And I'd stopped smoking like 3 years before, but he gave me a cigarette, so there I was start again.
But then the name Spalding was a red flag. But this Spalding, the brother
of
Winston Spalding, he came to your rescue.
He was the deputy leader of the Labour Party. And boy,
he was a lawyer as well.
Yeah.
He is a lawyer. He's still alive.
He's an attorney, yes.
Still alive.
And when Winston come in there and read the riot act to them let me go. Yeah, very quickly too. Within minutes of me hearing his mouth, I was out. They never charged me with anything.
Well, let me ask you, Joan. Looking back at that period and where we are, how disappointed are you?
Very, very disappointed. Very disappointed. You know, I've actually thought many times. I thought about writing this book for years, and I just never got around to it. And I went to Cuba last year to meet some relatives I didn't know I had, but my Canadian side of my family was in touch with them. And when I saw the conditions in Cuba, because Cuba is really, really, it's as bad as Haiti now.
Yeah.
And when I saw the conditions, boy, I said, no, the struggle was not in vain, because that is where we would have been if those idiots had managed to put us on the manners, as they said.
Yeah. Leaving the politics aside, you have had some personal tragedy. You write about the loss of your son.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you still haven't gotten over that.
You don't ever get over that. You don't ever get over the loss of a child.
What happened?
Well, he was shot. I've never been able to get the police to pay any attention to it. In fact, when he was shot, one bullet to the heart, not like he was shot up. And every time I called the police station at Constant Spring, I was met with hostility. But Macmillan had been the commissioner of police at the time, and he had publicly declared on RJR. RJR had covered a function where he was guest speaker, and he had declared that I was an enemy of the police. And it's just now looking back and seeing that the police actually has death squads and this type of thing, that I'm seriously wondering if he was knocked off by the police. Because
what were the circumstances?
He went to visit, he was leaving the island the next day. He went to visit some friends up by a place called Markland Close, right across from Allardyce Inn. And I get a call to say he's dead. One bullet to the heart. Yeah.
How old was he?
24. And his son, who worked here in the summer, Shadrach. Shadrach was 6 weeks old at the time, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Can't get over it.
Yeah. And then the night when you like a log, and that man entered the house in Spanish Town, and shots were fired, and somehow you slept through part of it.
If the world and I'm going to sleep straight with it, I can't wake up, Right. But it's a lucky thing, during that period, because of the violence, I'd taken the children to live with my mother in Malvern, St. Elizabeth, the most remote place in Jamaica you could ever expect to find. And the man entered through their room. So, I always look back and say, boy, what a lucky thing I was inspired to take them out of that place.
Okay.
But the ex-husband and the man fight in the bed over the gun. And 5 shot fire before I wake up.
All right, stay with us, Joan. Probably we may have a few callers who want to ask you a few questions. You can spend a little more time.
Sure.
All right, stay with us. Let's go to the break, and then we'll take some of your calls. Yeah? If you want to ask Joan about her own experiences, it's riveting. It's called Looking Back by Joan Williams. Where is it available? In the bookstores?
No, it's only available at Craft Cottage at the Village Plaza locally.
Okay.
But everybody buys everything online now. It's on Amazon. And
good.
Getting excellent reviews on Amazon.
Very good. All right, let's go to the break and come back. We still have Joan Williams with us, looking back at what was Jamaica in the 70s and the 80s. Marie?
Cliff.
Yes.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Joan.
Hi, Maria.
I'm good. But Cliff, I did kind of stop calling now because, boy, the campaign thing did really turn me off. Man, I lie,
Yes.
Yeah. But, Joan and Cliff, since, because I have a son that's 39th day, right? didn't 1976 we had an election on December 16, Joan and Cliff?
December 15,
It was
1976,
15.
yes.
Oh, I know why I think of 15 car. The little taking in thing was what them say, the pain and whatever. So he was born like 12 o'clock the night then, which should have been this
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so that's why I thought
Mhm.
so. Yeah, but you know, Joan, I'm going to say this, right? When listening to you, I always thought that you were anti-establishment. Honestly, you know, but I don't want to take it negatively when I say that. This is my opinion. But listening to your story today, with you know what you have written, I understand now where you're coming from, and and like them say, don't judge a man until you have walked in his shoes, and I understand where you're coming from because, like I said, I was turned off the other day with all the political campaigning, and I understand where you're coming from with all that you have been through. And first of all, I want to say condolences on you on the death of your son. Because I know what it is to lose a family member. Yes, I've lost a sister to violence. And before and Cliff,
Yes,
the other
ma'am.
day when you were over by Trenchtown,
Yes.
like I was saying, I wanted to come over there, but I didn't know if with the new, you know, how they're trying to bring the school back, if they would have allowed anybody on campus. But, you know, and I know, I can understand where Joan is coming from because I've seen communities that have been decimated by politics.
Of
You
course,
understand
yes,
me?
all over Kingston.
Yes, decimated by politics, and instead of people being regarded as Jamaicans, they were just seen as voters. You understand where I come from?
Yeah.
So, you know, so I've seen where...
Try and get a copy of the book.
Yes, I've seen Cliff and Joan. They say, you know, this, I think it was like one of I wasn't here for 80, but one near politics where when Jonestown and all of that, you know, and was on fire. You understand? Me say picnic Cliff with Dosemina grip upon them head because people had to be like, I'm gonna exaggerate right now, literally like taking up them beds and walk.
Yeah.
Yes.
We did have a civil war. We just will not
It was not declared. It was not declared.
Exactly.
Yes.
And we had our own ethnic cleansing, but it was political cleansing.
And the agencies from outside were assisting both sides.
Yes.
Yes. So, you know, so I just want to say, you know, that kudos to the book, and I'm going to try to get a copy and read it because, and
It's
I
on,
say,
you say it's on
It's
Amazon?
on Amazon.com, easy to
Yes.
get.
And
And
I
if you have
take
a e-book reader, even you can read it on your phone because it's an e-book and we do have a few paperbacks.
Okay, and I know I understand you more, Joan. Yes, I
Okay.
really do.
On Twitter at Joan Williams 106. Joan, congrats on your book. Michael Grove says, congrats on your book. I plan on reading. How do I get a signed copy?
Well, it depends. Are you in Jamaica? If you're in Jamaica, Craft Cottage has a few. I can sign it once you buy it there. But
Where's Craft Cottage?
that's at the Village Plaza. They are my best distributor.
Okay.
I've quite a few books out too. Three to be exact, yes.
Oh, the others are?
Dancehall Dictionary and Tour Jamaica.
Okay. Good. Cleveland.
Hello, Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Miss Williams.
Mr. Cleveland, how you do, sir?
Not bad. I'm not forgetting that day, you know,
Which day?
when they had a roadblock.
You're blocked up.
Yes.
79?
I used to work I was up at Constant Spring Post Office at the time. And when I leave work, I tell you I have to search my way to get back on Reddy's Road.
You know the amount of people that cost me Cleveland, how them have to take off them shoes and walk home and park them. And poor little me all like this walk out my bike and beg people little gas.
Miss Williams, from those days we were taking life serious in this country. The politicians then couldn't carry AY, so.
True.
You know, if we were taking
You see,
life
Cleveland,
more serious.
If the younger generation had picked up the baton and become involved in life,
Yes.
but it's like people keep looking at the same old people
Yeah,
to
they
do
just
these
sit
things.
down
you know,
there
where are the young
and
people?
stop up. Yes, stop up things from these same old people.
Yeah,
whether
and
they're
it's the
from
same
them
old
time.
people in power.
Yes.
Where are the young people?
Very
Yes,
few of them are around. And
It
they are
is
no
so-
different from the oldsters in terms of
Exactly.
behavior.
true.
Yes.
And, you know, Mr. Williams, I appreciate you more now, and I'm sure some of my labor right friends, them, when we hear some of the stories you have to tell, because I think
You won't
sometimes
cuss her
some
as
of my
much.
labor right friends, them have a wrong
But me like when them
impression
cuss me,
about
man,
you.
Cleveland. I feel wanted when them cuss me.
But I think most of us now we more appreciate. Well, I wouldn't put myself in that, you know.
I met Cleveland at Motti's funeral. He came up to me and said, I'm a cultist.
Right? But I tell you, man, that was good, and now hearing of how your son really get killed, you know.
Still don't know why he was killed, but
You know?
I'm looking at the police with a lot of
Yes,
suspicion.
yes. And true, you was an activist in them time too, you know.
Jim Dandy, good afternoon.
Hi, Chris.
Good.
Good evening.
Good evening, Jim Dandy. How you doing?
1 minute. 3 quick questions. What kind of a relationship do you have with the present Prime Minister, currently and over the years?
I don't have any relationship with any politician, thank God.
Give me your
I am a citizen of Jamaica, and
but
if they are not acting in the interest of Jamaica, I say so. I don't have a relationship with no politician.
Give me your ratings. Second question. Hold on, you can answer me when you're done. Would you blame the PNP and the JLP for the condition that Jamaica is in right now, currently, over the years?
Would I blame the PNP and the jail? Of course. They are the ones who have been running our lives since independence.
Now, I want to answer the question then. Name it 3 of your favorite JLP and PNP politician over the years.
Oh gosh, that's a difficult one.
Dr.
Kenbo in the JLP is one of my favorite politicians. Pernell Charles in the JLP is one of my favorite politicians. And I'm thinking hard now who in the PNP. I've left the PNP such a long time and I've never had a relationship. Oh, you know who was one of my favorite politicians? The late Carl Rattray. You know, when I left the PNP, there was a lot of animosity and people turned them back from me and cussed me and things. And Carl Rattray remained my friend up to when he died.
Yeah, you told me about that. You wrote about the friend who turned his back on you. And
somebody who had been at school with, we had been friends at school. We went to all the PNPYO meetings, the task force meetings, everything. Mm-hmm. And when me go start campaign for the JLP and see the boy and call to him, he just turn him back and walk away from me.
What is the rating of the current Prime Minister?
Terrible. -0. Very, very bad. I'm very, very disappointed because I like to think I'm a bit of a feminist, and I really think when women move into jobs, they tend to do better than the men as a general. There's exception, and Portia has really disappointed me.
You wrote in the book, Joan, while there have been several excuses made by apologists over the years as to why the PNP was so badly routed, that's in the 80 election, with the ever-present claim of destabilization being the most used, it was clearly much deeper than that. For the departure from the hierarchy of the PNP of persons such as statesmen, David Corr, a former Deputy Prime Minister, former Finance Minister, Eric Bell, and one of the brilliant minds, Vivian Blake, who managed defeated for the leadership of the PNP in February 1969. So you obviously had a high regard for Corr, Bell and Blake.
Yes, because when they saw the direction that Manley was taking the country, what I blame them for, they never really told the country where they left. They just walked and kept silent. Alan Isaacs actually crossed the floor and ran for the JLP. But while I respect Corr, Blake and Bell for distancing themselves from it, I don't think I don't admire them for keeping quiet about what is happening.
They should have.
Yeah. If things are going rotten, they're trying to put people in a situation where we're taking away our freedoms. Heck, man, if you're not part of it, come out and say why.
We have another call online. One more. Who is it? Chrisania? Sanya. Yes, Sanya.
Sonia. It's Sonia. Hi,
Sonia.
Chris.
Good.
Yes, I found your interview with Joan is wonderful.
Thank you,
What it does, it makes me realize that I'm not mad when I recall that period, because my kids seem to think I'm a mad woman and making up Nancy stories. That book is bought. I will be getting it by the end of the week. I will also be getting it as a Christmas gift.
It's available at Craft Cottage right in the Village Plaza.
It's a good spot to have your book. Yeah. My book is there. I know you read my book, Joan, and you even thought you guessed some of the parties involved in it.
Oh, yes, I remember.
Yes, but I will definitely be getting, oh gosh, I can't, that period, all that belt tightening, I'm glad you remember that champagne and caviar were flowing. I remember
hypocrisy,
Mrs. Manley going to worship at the feet of Comrade Brezhnev in her mink. When we spoke about that, she said, oh, it was a borrowed mink. But you know, the whole, as you say, the hypocrisy. Yeah, tighten your belt, you can't get, everything is married in the shops, and they can get steaks and...
a lot of them just wanted to replace the Buckymaster and live high life. It was not ideology that they really believed in.
No, and like you, I thought Manley could have done anything. I remember Bev Manley saying, my husband can make these people do anything he wants. That's a leadership thing. that you talk about, that he was a good leader.
Oh, yeah.
She said
That
it
is
on
what a
air.
good leader can. He can motivate
He
his
can
people
make
to do
these
anything.
people do anything. But I thought he would have been such a great, because people could follow him.
Yeah.
I thought he was, would have been a blessing for Jamaica. But I was so sadly disappointed within a year or two of coming back to this country. I'm so glad for what you must do, Cliff, is make tapes of this interview with Joan and sell it. That would go like hot bread.
Well, you can get tips of
I
it.
would love that. I would love that
Oh,
for that
okay.
same son or daughter.
Yes.
This son is going to be bombarded with Jones looking back at this Christmas. Trust me. Great
Okay.
idea, Joan.
Okay,
Great idea.
yeah.
Wonderful. Keep it up.
All
And,
right.
and of course, your riding through the country is another thing that I love. With
Yes.
your
Oh, thank you.
Your fun and thrill singer.
No, I really
I
like
don't know.
Jamaica. I have traveled extensively.
Best
And I
place in
can't
the world.
find all that I would like in life in one spot like we have in Jamaica.
Yeah, best-
And these people trying to mash it up. That's what upset me.
Yeah. I get annoyed and frankly angry
Yeah.
whenever I go out in the country, as
Yeah.
I did this week out into St. Elizabeth. And I said it. This country is worth fighting
It's
for.
worth fighting for.
Yeah.
And Cliff, before I go, I have to tell you what you said to tell you that boy, you have gone beyond all his expectations. Keep it up.
I wonder how much he told you that.
You know that the Lord talked to me to help me. So
All right. Thank you, Joan.
Thank you very much, Cliff.
I recommend it. Looking Back by Joan Williams. Go to Amazon.com or at the Craft Cottage.
Craft Cottage in the Village Plaza locally.
Go get it. It's a good read for the Christmas holidays, especially for the youngsters who have no appreciation of what Jamaica went through in the 1970s and the 1980s. Okay? Thank you, Joan.
Thank you, Mr. Cliff.